Plugin of the week, Kazrog, True Dynamics. This is a plugin that is an emulation of two different limiters. One limiter is the P41A. It's a Presto 41A limiter, which is actually for cutting lathe. Presto was a company that made cutting lathes. This goes back to the 1940s. And this limiter was basically used as a way of keeping the cutting lathe from, basically not blowing up. Or maybe not blowing up is not the right idea, but the cutting head, when it cuts into the lacquer, if it's not limited, it can cut too far if there is a transient or some energy that kind of pushes down too far. So the limiter would be used to kind of keep it basically engaged so that it wouldn't ruin the lacquer and perhaps even ruin the cutting head. And it has a very cool, beautiful sound, big giant transformers, tubes in it. Then there is the LA1B here, and this comes from ITA, which is Industrial Transmitter and Amplifiers. It's a company going back, I think when this one came out, it was in the 1950s. I'm not sure of the history of the company, how far back that goes. But basically, this was a limiting amplifier. It was designed for radio stations. Now, the cutting lathe company, the Presto company, a lot of where they sold those to were to radio stations and to small record labels so that they could actually cut their records right in the studio itself. It later on kind of went to, bigger processing plants and stuff like that and mastering facilities where they would do all of those sorts of things. But they were both really amazing limiters. Classic in the sense that, they certainly have a place in history. I have never worked with either of these two, but in just kind of working for a limited amount of time with this plugin, these two versions, I think it's an incredibly valuable tool for mixing and maybe even mastering work. I haven't tried it on that level. And so I'll go through a few things here. One is to, I'll just put it right on the mix bus here, and I'm just going to feed some stuff into it, and then we'll kind of dive into some other things that we can do with it. Essentially, it's pretty straightforward. We have a gain reduction here, so this is like your threshold, and recovery time. Now, I don't believe that either of these compressors had a recovery time, so this is a feature I believe is added in. And it ranges from 0.1 seconds, so 100 milliseconds, and then it scoops all the way up to, 2.2 seconds. So we have a good range, there, which actually makes it very, gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of the way that it pumps, that it breathes if you wanted to do that, or the way it stabilizes things. Wet-dry control, that should be pretty much standard with every limiter that you get. Output gain control. Now this is kind of an interesting one because when I looked at this, I said, you hear that? That's great, right? So that is, goes all the way up to 60 dB. And I say, well, why would you need 60 dB of output gain? And I thought, that's because when you hit it really hard, it must sound good. And we'll kind of get to that with some of the audio examples. Now, as far as the whole section up top here, you have preset controls here. You have A/B slots so that you can do comparisons. You could save your presets. There's a settings section here, which allows you to set the oversampling. Now, if you do change the oversampling, it would change it for all the instances of it, and you have to close the session down, restart it in order for you to hear the results. There's also a little tooltips thing, so that can be handy when you want to work. And then there's an offline 32 times oversampling that you could put in. So for the sake of just sort of keeping everything normal here, I'll keep it at 2 times sampling so I'm not nothing is blowing up. I haven't really experimented with it a lot to see if, how CPU intensive it is, but looks pretty cool so far. The sidechain filters are really powerful. So the sidechain filters allow you to control what signals end up triggering the gain reduction, and this can allow you to really even it out or make it more responsive, especially taking out like a lot of RMS energy. If your mix is heavy in RMS energy, it may be gumming up the compressor and maybe making it not kind of breathe as much. So you could do that. Or if you have high frequency information that's over triggering it, then you could pull down with the low pass filter and kind of control signals that way. So when you put it all to the extremes like this, then it disengages and it's out. All right, so that's the basics of it here. Close that out. There's a bypass here, which will give you a latency-free bypass. Right, so if you have a host that doesn't do latency compensation or delay compensation, and that's basically it. So let's put I'm just going to run like a basic mix up through here, and just drums and music, just so I can talk over it a little bit. And let's just kind of go through a couple of the settings, just so you can hear the difference here between the 41A and the LA1B. So what I was using this for here was just to kind of control a little bit of how much the kick and the snare sort of move and kind of breathe. Got a nice release time that seems to breathe back or bounce back kind of musically. A lot of flexibility. You see how easy it is to use. And then setting the gain reduction. So the Presto version has, like, you know, just like an amazing kind of openness and clarity, which I really like. And it's a great comparison or contrast, because when you need something that is a bit warmer, the LA1B is a better choice. So I'm going to go back and forth here. Let's just check this out. So you could hear how rich this is in the low end. This also, you know, this particular limiter was also famous because it had probably one of the fastest attack times for a tube compressor, which was is very cool. But you could hear just the tonal character that it brings out. There's like a richness, especially to the low mid energy and low end energy, and the way that just comes alive. And then here you have a bit more openness. And this gives you like two really distinct characteristics that are powerful. So one other way of using this, let's just say that I like the B setting better, so I'll go back over to here. One other way to use this is to kind of work our way back here. Let me just go back to this. I'm just going to crank this all the way up. We're just going to slam this here. Right. two things here. One, I'm going to show you with it kind of flattening out. I'm going to bring in the mix control here because I'm not going to leave it that way. But here we go. Just as a parallel mix thing, you could hear how like that can really glue things together if you want something that's really kind of tight and up front. Now let's just check out the characteristic of that versus the ITB, the LA1B. So you can really see how that kind of, glues everything together. So that's kind of the reason why you have that 60 dB of gain, because if you really press into the recovery. The other thing you can do here is you can sometimes get it to breathe a bit more aggressively. And this is probably not the best example of that. But if we went over to do like a parallel mix bus kind of thing, this would be an example where you could probably, one way to use like a super fast release. So let's just kind of zoom in on the drums here. All right, so you can get that real like pump and breathe kind of thing, or you can just clamp it right down. Right, and just take an individual element, like this, and as a parallel, it's just amazing. And I'm not sure how like heavily some of these things, some of these old broadcast limiters, and especially with a lot of broadcast radio and stuff, they would just slam things really hard because they could control the dynamic range, and that would allow the radio transmitter to reach a broader audience. So the whole analog compression thing for radio was really about being able to reach a greater range of people. And then also with your advertising, if you say you can reach 2 million people instead of 1 million people, that's a huge difference in terms of how much money you would get. So they would, basically just crush audio and transmit it that way. And if you were old enough to live during that time of analog radio, you may not have never understood that at the time, but still enjoyed it. And so there's a characteristic sound that many of you are used to hearing and just not aware of it. And some of that is kind of built into this. This is just on the bass here. It's going to give a little example of using this on the bass. This is a way of bringing clarity in, or on the other end. A little weight. Let's see which one sounds better in the context of the mixed with the drums. It's almost unfair here because I think what's happening here on this end is that one is getting more gain reduction than the other. Give this one to presto just for opening up the bass sound a little bit. All right, well, one last example here would be using this on a vocal, and there's lots of ways that you could use this kind of thing, you know, on a vocal. So let's just open up one of them here. Let's see. I think I have a little thing there that allows me. Great, perfect. All right. So let's solo this up here. Go to the verse.
I died again. Please don't tell my friends, 'cause I don't want them to cry. No, not I. It's hard to witness with an intimate distance of friendship turned toxic, codependent. I will quit it, never fix it. I will quit it, never fix it.
Okay, and then let's try this out with the 41B.
I died again.
Make a similar kind of thing here. Let me go back. More gain reduction. Kind of drop that in. Put this over to here.
I died again. Please don't tell my friends, 'cause I don't want them to cry. No, not I. It's hard to witness with an intimate distance of friendship turned toxic, codependent. I will quit it, never fix it. I will quit it, never fix it. I died again. Please don't tell my friends, 'cause I don't want them to cry. No, not I. It's hard to witness with an intimate distance of friendship turned toxic, codependent.
All right, so let's hear what this is in the vocal. I like the way that this really, you know, solidifies the voice, you know, makes it image clearly. So.
I died again. Please don't tell my friends, 'cause I friendship turned toxic, codependent. I will quit it, never fix it. I will quit it, never fix it.
So I'd like this one a little bit more open. We could do one other thing, which is just to show you what happens, if you just crush the vocal, which is also a nice thing we all love to do.
I died again. Please don't tell my friends, 'cause I...
Okay, a little spitting there as it cuts through.
I died again. Please don't tell my friends, 'cause I don't want them to cry. No, not I. It's hard to witness with an intimate distance of friendship turned toxic, codependent. I will quit it, never fix it. I will quit it, never fix it. Jesus' yeast gave me a priest infection. He wouldn't give me bread. I'm on funeral reception. I died again. Please don't tell my friends, 'cause I don't want them to cry. No, not I. It's hard to witness with an intimate distance of friendship turned toxic, codependent. I will quit it, never fix it. I will quit it, never fix it. Jesus' yeast gave me a priest infection. He wouldn't give me bread. I'm on funeral reception.
Just as a way of kind of solidifying the voice, you can hear on some of it there's a little bit of overshoot. Maybe it's overshooting the attack. Maybe that's a byproduct of me like really, really super compressing it and how far it has to go. So probably lightening up a little bit gives like a little bit better effect, allows it to breathe just a touch more. Let's hear it.
I died again. Please don't tell my friends, 'cause I don't want them.
Probably better in parallel where I can control it a little bit more. Let's go to the other setting.
I died again. Please don't tell my friends, 'cause I don't want them to cry. No, not I. It's hard to witness with an intimate distance of friendship turned toxic, codependent. I will quit it, never fix it. I will quit it, never fix it. Jesus' yeast gave me a priest infection. He wouldn't give me bread. I'm on funeral reception. He asked if I was Christian.
Right, there's some other backgrounds there and there, but you could hear how much range you have, especially with these recovery controls, because I don't believe any of those limiters where they did have recovery times, they were usually on switches, where you would have some stepped release times and stuff like that for different situations. But both really powerful, both have a really unique, solid character and a really clean sound. I think the plugin that True Iron plugin which Kazrog came out with was really amazing to me just because of the clarity. Just like no kind of aliasing whatsoever. Just like seems so crystal clear and clean. And I feel a very similar thing here. So these guys are definitely onto something. I really love this. Still playing around with it, still finding different ways of using it. But whether you use it in parallel, whether you use it, just straight up mix bus on individual instruments, experiment with it. Really powerful one and really great work. So as a cool one, this was a pre-buy they actually pre-sold it before it came out. I bought it right away because I just purchased the True Iron plugin and was just so blown away by it and couldn't be happier. So there you have it. Plugin of the week, Kazrog True Dynamics.